Hey, how's everybody doing? Hotep. Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. Today is Monday, August 7th, 2017. This is the 200th day of the Donald Trump regime. I think this is day 200th day of the Donald Trump regime. And we are live. We should be live on Facebook Live. Okay. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Okay. All right. Hopefully everyone can hear me well. So, last Thursday I did the African History Network show on Blog Talk Radio. And we did the African History Network show last night on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. Okay. The Voice of Detroit. I did not get a chance to talk about the silent march of 1917, the silent march of 1917, where you had 10,000 African Americans who were protesting against lynching and racism. And they were also trying to get a anti-lynching bill passed as well, a federal anti-lynching bill passed. Okay. I did not get a chance to talk about that. So we'll talk about that tonight. Okay. And also I'm going to try to get to this story about the advisory that the travel advisory that the NAACP put out for Missouri, because I did not get a chance to talk about that. Last Thursday, we talked about it some, but it didn't record on Blog Talk Radio. Okay. So, and on Facebook, we were having a problem. So we're going to do that again also. Okay. So how's everybody doing this evening? Welcome to the African History Network show, Monday night edition. Okay. Share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. Okay. And also, we'll do a brief overview of an online course that I teach called Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So last Friday, July 28th, was the 100th anniversary of the 1917 march that took place, the protest march that took place, okay, down Fifth Avenue in New York. And you had approximately 10,000 African Americans that participated in this. To understand this march, you have to understand some of the historical events that led up to the protest march taking place, okay? You're going to have the East St. Louis race riot of 1917, July 2nd, 1917, the East St. Louis race riot. All right. And you're going to have attacks on African Americans that took place in Texas. You're going to have attacks that take place on African Americans in different cities across the country. Okay. Google on July 28th, Google had a Google Doodle that talked about the East St. Louis race riot, and it actually connected them to the website of the Equal Justice Initiative, okay? And Brian Stevenson runs the Equal Justice Initiative, if I remember correctly. And it gave people historical information about the protests in 1917, because a lot of people did not know about this. Okay. AtlantaBlackStar.com has an article, many learn of silent parade, hashtag silent parade for the first time. Many learn of hashtag silent parade for the first time after Google honors iconic civil rights march. Okay. And so you're going to have people that learn about this. Also, people learn about some of the events that lead up to it happening. All right. So this is during the Great Migration. Okay. This is during the Great Migration, which takes place from basically 1915 to 1960, the Great Migration of 1915 to 1960. And you're going to have, during that period of time, you're going to have 5 million African Americans who migrate from the South. They're going to migrate to the North and then also migrate out West. Okay. 1917 is also during World War I. All right. Which is from 1914 to 1918. Okay. This is also during World War I, from 1914 to 1918. And when African Americans move up north and move into these various cities like Detroit, Michigan, and Gary, Indiana, Chicago, Illinois, is going to cause racial tensions. It's going to put pressure on housing. It's going to cause more competition for jobs, things like this, which is going to lead to race riots. Okay. So if we look at this historically, we see that 1917 is during World War II and during the Great Migration. This is 2 years before the Red Summer. 1919 was known as the Red Summer, where you had over 25 major race riots in this country. Okay. 1919 was known as the Red Summer. You had over 25 major race riots in this country because this is the year after World War I ends. And during World War I, you're going to have 5 million men who go and fight in World War I. And when they left, they had jobs. Most of these are white men going to fight in World War I. You do have some African Americans, majority are white men. And when they went to fight, when they left, when they came back, these jobs are going to be filled by African. Excuse me. When they came back, these jobs are going to be filled by African Americans and some immigrants. Okay. So this is going to cause more racial tensions. And when these white men come back, they're bringing back fighting skills with them, how to fight and how to kill. They're also bringing back weapons with them as well. Okay. So this is going to explode in the cities of America, and it's called the Red Summer. And it was said the streets were flowing with the blood. The streets were flowing with blood. That's why it's called the Red Summer. This is so 1917 is 2 years after the movie The Birth of a Nation debuted. Okay. So the movie The Birth of a Nation is something that's pivotal and central to American history. The movie The Birth of a Nation debuts February 8th, 1915. And it is at the time, it was the longest, basically the longest movie ever made. It was 3 hours. Most movies at this time are between 12 minutes to about 30 minutes. It cost $100,000 to make this movie. Okay. And everybody, please share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. Okay. Please share this broadcast on your Facebook page and invite your friends to tune in as well. Okay. Okay. So the movie, The Birth of a Nation, cost $100,000 to make it, which at the time was the most expensive movie. And the movie dealt with slavery, the Civil War, and the period of time after the Civil War called Reconstruction, basically from 1865 to 1877. All the hatred that the South had for losing the Civil War was shown in that movie. All the hatred. So this is why you have to understand history. And, history teaches you how to deal with the problems of the past in the present and the future. History teaches you how to deal with the problems of the past in the present and the future. The reason why is because things happen in cycles. Okay. Things happen in cycles. All right. So you're going to deal with the same problem in the future, in the present, or something similar. All right. This is why it's important to study history to find out how did you deal with these problems in the past or similar problems in the past, and what were the successes and what were the failures. So when you look at the movie The Birth of a Nation, all the hatred the South had for losing the Civil War came out in that movie, number one. Number two, this movie is in 1915, right? So 1915 is the 50th anniversary of the Civil War ending, the 50th anniversary of the enslaved Africans being set free. That was in 1865. Okay, so yeah, that's the 50th anniversary as well. Now so at the end of the movie, you're going to have a Ku Klux Klan like group that rises up and puts down a rebellion of Negro Union soldiers. Okay, and the Ku Klux Klan, they're the heroes of the movie. The movie The Birth of a Nation is based upon a novel called The Klansman by a man named Thomas Dixon. Okay, and when the movie The Birth of a Nation comes out, we had enough sense to protest against it because we understood it was detrimental to us. I mean, they show the majority of the parts of African Americans in the movie were actually white people in blackface. All right, but they show black men trying to rape white women in the movie. Now, this movie is also going to cause race riots across the country as well. And it was shown for President Woodrow Wilson at the White House, who's a white supremacist as well. Okay. The movie The Birth of a Nation helped to rejuvenate the Ku Klux Klan, because by 1915, Ku Klux Klan had pretty much died out. Ku Klux Klan is founded December 24th, 1865 in Pulaski, Tennessee. Okay. And it's founded by former Confederate soldiers. All right. So by 1915, Ku Klux Klan had pretty much died out. Well, when this movie comes out, it's going to rejuvenate interest in the Ku Klux Klan, so much so that you're going to have in newspapers where they had ads for the movie The Birth of a Nation, you're going to have the Ku Klux Klan oftentimes take out recruiting ads next to the ads for the movie The Birth of a Nation. So the Ku Klux Klan is going to be rejuvenated because of this movie. Okay, so when we look at the silent march of 10,000 African Americans down Fifth Avenue in New York in 1917, this is 2 years after the movie The Birth of a Nation comes out. This is 2 years before the explosion of race riots across the country in the Red Summer. Okay, this is 4 years before the attack on Tulsa, Oklahoma. All right, at Black Wall Street. This is 4 years before that. Now, if we go back to 1906, you had a play called The Klansman that came out. And in Philadelphia, you're going to have 3,000 African Americans who protest against the play, because the play The Klansman was based upon the novel The Klansman. And the novel The Klansman is the novel that the movie The Birth of a Nation is based upon. When the movie The Birth of a Nation comes out, you're going to have the NAACP protest against it. They're going to organize protests against this film in 1915. And in Boston, Massachusetts, you're going to have William Monroe Trotter, who's going to organize protests against this movie, The Birth of a Nation, when it comes to Boston. So we had a better sense of understanding when we were under attack, and we took action against it. We had a better sense of when we were under attack, and we took action against it. Okay, so I want to put this in a historical context, because when we look at the Silent March of 1917, it's important to understand the climate that African Americans were operating in. Okay, because historical events don't happen in a vacuum. They are the sequence of other historical events that have a domino effect that lead up to a particular event taking place. All right. Historical events do not happen in a vacuum. They are the sequence of other historical events that take place that have a domino effect and lead up to a particular event happening. Let's see, I think it was theroot.com. Theroot.com has an article about the movie The Birth of a Nation and the protests against the movie The Birth of a Nation. And I know on pbs.org they showed a documentary dealing with the film The Birth of a Nation. And I'm sorry, they showed a documentary dealing with the protests against the film The Birth of a Nation, okay, on pbs.org. All right. Okay, so the Great Migration is going to cause tensions to increase in northern states. All right. And one of the things that precipitates this march is the East St. Louis race riot of 1917. That's probably the most recent thing, the East St. Louis race riot of 1917. Okay. So when we look at the Great Migration, right, it's from 1915 to 1960. You're going to have about 5 million African Americans who leave the South and they go up north. All right. And they're going into they go up north and then they're going to go out west as well. So it start in the 1910s, you're going to have about 450,000 African American Southerners who are going to move north. Okay. The first large movement of African Americans occurred during World War I, which is from 1914 to 1918, World War I. Okay. Then you're going to have in the 1920s, you have another 800,000 African Americans leave the South. And then in the 1930s, you're going to have about 398,000 who leave the South. Between 1940 and 1960, over 3.3 million African Americans are going to leave the South, and they're going to go into northern states, and they're also going to go into they're going to go out west as well, go out in Los Angeles, California, Oakland, San Francisco, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, things like this, right? Now, when World War I comes, and you're going to have about 5 million white men, you're going to have about 5 million men, most of them white, who go into World War I. This is going to create a labor vacuum, okay? And it creates a labor vacuum to the point that you're going to have some industries that are going to lure African Americans from the South up north because they need to go to work in the factories. So much so that you're going to have some companies who pay to relocate these African Americans up north. For instance, the Pennsylvania Railroad Company needed workers so badly that they paid the travel expenses of 12,000 African Americans to move from the South up north. The Illinois Central Railroad Company, along with many steel mills, factories, and tanneries, similarly provided free railroad passes for African Americans to move from the South up north. World War I was the first time since emancipation that African American labor was in demand outside of the agricultural South, and the economic promise was enough for many African Americans to overcome substantial challenges to migrate. In addition to migrating up north for job opportunities, African Americans also moved up north to escape the oppressive conditions of the South. They were trying to escape rampant racism, escape the Ku Klux Klan or Ku Klux Klan-like groups, also seeking voting rights, equal protection under the law, better housing conditions. Many of them are coming from an agricultural background, many of them sharecroppers. and they're trying to escape this and seek a better life up north. Okay, so this is what's taking place. Some of the main social factors for migration included lynching, an unfair legal system, inequality in education, and the denial of voting rights. So there's not just racial terror they were fleeing from the South, but specifically lynchings. And lynchings don't just mean hangings. Lynchings mean the unjust killing of somebody, usually by a mob. Emmett Till, when you actually study what lynchings are, Emmett Till was lynched, okay, August 25th, 1955 in Money, Mississippi. Even though he was not hung, he was unjustly killed. It was a racial killing, okay? So so when we deal with the Great Migration, we have to understand what caused it in the period of time that it happened. And the Great Migration is so you're going to have Henry Ford and his auto plants, right? In Highland Park, Michigan. He starts making cars in 1908. So you have a lot of African Americans that come up, go into the Detroit, Michigan area to work in his plants. But also with World War I, you're going to have companies that lure a lot of African Americans up north as well to fill these jobs that they had that white men were doing before they left. Okay. All right. So I want to give some of that background information. How's everybody doing? Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. You can probably tell I'm a talk show host. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. Share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. Share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. Okay, we're talking about the 100th anniversary of the silent march, the silent protest that took place in New York. July 28, 1917, and you had 10,000 African Americans who were marching. They were protesting against lynchings, and they were fighting for a federal anti-lynching law, also a federal anti-lynching law as well. Okay. All right. We just posted the link to the online course that I teach also, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. I teach that on Friday night, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do it live. All the sessions are recorded. We have information there. It's a 12-hour, 6-week online course. We'll talk some more about that, but you can register for that if you like also. We deal with some of this type of information and a lot more in the class. Also, one last thing I want to get to. In 1916, to show you the climate that African Americans were dealing with at this time, 1 year before this 1917 East St. Louis race riot, which I'm going to tell you about in just a minute, and 1 year before this silent march, you have a man named Harry C. Brown. Harry C. Brown records a he records a song on Columbia Records called N-Word, Love a Watermelon, Ha Ha Ha. Except he used the full term. He didn't say N-word. N-Word, Love a Watermelon, Ha Ha Ha. Okay, this was the name of the song. And the song lampooned and made fun of African American men eating watermelon. It called them all type of derogatory names, things like this. And this was a popular song recorded by Columbia Records. His name is Harry C. Brown. The video's on YouTube. The song is on YouTube. You can listen to it. They actually show you the record. They actually show you a picture of the record with the label from Columbia Records. And they have this, they play the song. When I did my lecture on the history of Black Wall Street, at the end of that lecture, I played that song for the audience because most people never heard of it before. Okay. Coming up this Thursday on Wake Up with Steve Hood, the morning show here in Detroit on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, because I do local radio here in Detroit. We're going to talk about that some. Okay, because the tune that's used for that song is one of the most popular tunes played by ice cream trucks to this day that drive throughout our neighborhoods. All right. N-word, love a watermelon, ha ha ha, by Harry C. Brown. Research that. Okay. So when we look at the 1917 silent protest, right? The NAACP is going to organize this silent protest. It's called silent. It's called, you may hear it referred to as a silent protest parade or a silent march. Okay. It's held in New York City, Saturday, July 28th, 1917. Okay. And they marched down Fifth Avenue. And this parade came about because of violence that was acted upon African Americans, including race riots, lynchings, things like this in Texas, Tennessee, Illinois, and other states. All right. If you go back to 1908, you have the race riot in Illinois, in Springfield, Illinois, that breaks out in 1908, where 8 African Americans are killed. And that's going to lead to the formation. That Springfield, Illinois race riot leads to the formation of the NAACP. Okay. Which is found in 1909, coming out of the Niagara movement, which was from 1905 to about 1908, the Niagara movement. Okay. And the Niagara movement comes about because there's a split in the Afro-American Council, founded in 1898 by Bishop Alexander Walters and T. Thomas Fortune. And it was actually called the Afro-American Council because the term Afro-American goes back to the 1830s. That wasn't created in 1960s. No, the term Afro-American goes back to the 1830s, but the Afro-American Council, founded in 1898, which was a civil rights organization, because civil rights goes back to 1865 and 1866. Civil rights didn't start in 1964. You're going to have a split in that organization. You're going to have a pro Booker T. Washington faction, and then you're going to have Dr. W.B. Du Bois and Ida B. Wells and others, the other faction. They're going to split away and form the Niagara movement in 1905. They leave the Afro-American Council. Now, one incident in particular that leads to the July 28, 1917 silent protest parade or silent protest march is the East St. Louis race riot, okay, that breaks out July 2nd, 1917, July 2nd, 1917, also called the East St. Louis Massacre. Now, this was a major catalyst of the parade. This horrific event drove close to 6,000 African Americans from their own homes. They were burned out of their homes, and it left several hundred dead. Estimates are somewhere around 300 dead. James Weldon Johnson, who was the second vice president of the NAACP, he's going to bring together other civil rights leaders. They're going to gather at St. Philip's Church in New York, and they're going to plan protest strategies. Okay. Now, none of them were trying to plan a protest march, okay, or a mass protest. Okay. None of them were trying to plan a mass protest. But they all agreed that a silent protest through the streets of the city of New York could spark the idea of racial reform and bring about an end to violence. Now, James Weldon Johnson is going to remember back to the previous year, 1916, at an NAACP conference when Oswald Garrison Villard suggested a mass protest march. Okay. So all of the organizations that were involved in this meeting agreed that this parade needed to comprise of African Americans only, not Jews, not whites at all, African Americans only. Okay. And the reason why was they said that the main victims of the violence were African Americans, and that we had a special responsibility to participate in this protest march. And this was the first major public protest of racial violence in the history of this country. This was the first major public protest of racial violence in the history of this country. Okay, so the protest march goes down, it moves south down Fifth Avenue, and it moved from Fifth Avenue to 57th Street and then to Madison Square. It goes south down Fifth Avenue. It moves from Fifth Avenue to 57th Street and then to Madison Square. Okay. And it brought out about 10,000 African-American men, women, and children. Men, women, and children. And they're going to march in silence. Okay. There was no chanting in this protest march or anything like this. They're gonna march in silence. Okay. The men are going to wear, so the children are in front. The children are in front. They're dressed in white. The women are behind the children marching. They're dressed in white. The men follow up in the rear. They're dressed in dark suits. Okay. So the white clothing that the women and children wore that signified innocence. That represented innocence. The dark colors that the men wore signified dignity and determination. Dignity and determination. So they're going to carry signs. They're going to carry signs that say things like, "Thou shalt not kill," "Your hands are full of blood," and "Mothers, do lynchers go to heaven?" Mothers, do lynchers go to heaven? Okay. They're going to carry signs like this. There's no chanting. They weren't saying no justice, no peace, anything like this. This is 1917. People had never seen anything like this before. This was the first major public protest against racial violence. Okay. So the marchers are going to carry these banners and posters stating the reasons for the march. And you're going to have participants and onlookers that are going to be totally amazed by this because they've never seen anything like this before. Okay. You're going to have members of the Boy Scouts, African-American members of the Boy Scouts, who are going to hand out flyers to the people who are watching the protest march. And these flyers are going to describe the NAACP's struggle against segregation, lynching, and discrimination. They're explaining why they're doing this protest march. They're explaining what's going on, okay? And they're protesting against other forms of racial oppression as well. Now, when we study mass protests, it's important to understand that marches don't solve the problem, but marches are never, when you study mass protests as a tactic, if you talk to people who really understand activism, marches are never designed to solve a problem. Marches are designed to bring attention to the problem, to inform people that the problem exists, to let people know what the problem is, to educate people on the problem, and then also to galvanize support for your issues and to bring people into your organization, work people into your plan. This is the purpose of mass protests. Okay. I don't have a problem with mass protests when they're used correctly, because people know how to use mass protests. We saw white people all across the country rising up to save the Affordable Health Care Act. They're outside of their senator's office. They're outside of their U.S. member House of Representatives office. They're going to the town hall meeting. They're using mass protest properly. Okay. We saw disabled people being pulled out of wheelchairs by security personnel. They're dramatizing what's going on to gain support for their initiative. They're using mass protests correctly. I don't have a problem with it. But the problem I have is when we suffer from March Madness. Many African Americans suffer from March Madness. I don't mean NCAA March Madness, when you sit up and waste time watching African American athletes being exploited by white institutions during the month of March. NCAA basketball. I'm not talking about that March Madness. I'm talking about March Madness. We get mad and we want to march. March Madness. Because what a lot of people don't understand is that marching is a tactic. Marching is not the plan. So you have a lot of people who think marching is a plan, and it's not. It's a tactic to be used in the overall plan. And that's where we run into a problem. when we suffer from March Madness and don't have a plan. Okay. So, James Weldon Johnson wrote in his 1938 autobiography, Along This Way. He said that the streets of New York have witnessed many strange sights, but I judge never one stranger than this, referring to the silent protest march. Among the watchers were those with tears in their eyes. Okay. So this, now they're never going to get, they fight for this. They fight for the for the federal anti-lynching law, but it never comes into fruition. Okay. If we look at the article from theroot.com, had an article from July 28th. Google Doodle pays tribute to the 100th anniversary of the NAACP silent protest parade. Google Doodle pays tribute to the 100th anniversary of the NAACP silent parade. Okay. And in the article, they talk about how it says, click the doodle on Google's search engine, and it will take you to search results featuring articles and pages about the silent protest march. Or if you click the hyperlink in the small text under the search bar, which reads 100 years after the silent parade, explore America's history of racial injustice. 100 years after the silent parade, explore America's history of racial injustice. Okay. And when you click on that link, Google redirected you to the landing page of the Equal Justice Initiative, the Equal Justice Initiative's website. And this is an organization, and their website explores how the effects of racial terror lynchings are still felt today. So they're doing a lot of good work at the Equal Justice Initiative. I've done stories on them in the past. Okay. So this was something great that Google did last Friday, because they shined a light on this, and a lot of people did not know this history about this protest march. I had studied it in the past. I've talked about it before. And we talked about it even a couple of weeks ago when I dealt with the East St. Louis race ride. Early in July, we dealt with the East St. Louis race ride on Waco with Steve Hood's show here in Detroit, and we talked some about the silent protest. But you had a lot of African Americans who did not know this history also. So this is a good thing that Google did. Okay. All right. For more information, I did a video. I think I have a video on YouTube for the East St. Louis race ride. So check that out. Yeah, we talked about that. Go to my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep, Michael Imhotep on YouTube. And we dealt with the East St. Louis race ride. So you can check that out. Okay. And just very quickly here, and then we'll talk some about the online course that I teach, and we'll talk about this advisory coming out of Missouri. Yesterday, August 6th, was the anniversary of the signing of the Voting Rights Act by Lyndon Johnson. Anniversary of the signing of the Voting Rights Act. So we'll probably talk about that some tomorrow. Okay. When I talked about the Great Migration, right? When I talked about the Great Migration and African Americans moving up north. If we look at East St. Louis, for instance, in 1910, the African American population in East St. Louis was 6,000. By 1917, it had almost doubled. And when you have these African Americans moving up north, this is causing more racial tensions. This is causing more racial tensions because there's competition for housing. There's competition for jobs. Okay. So you're going to see this as more African Americans move up north. You're going to have more segregation, even though they don't have the colored white and colored signs, things like this. You're still going to have segregation up there. You're going to have racial restrictive covenants when it comes to selling homes, because in the deeds of white homeowners, it was stated in the deed that they could not sell their home to African Americans, and they could not rent their homes to African Americans. Okay. And this locked a lot of us out of acquiring homes early on so we could build wealth, so they can accumulate wealth. The other thing is that you're going to have the Federal Housing Administration created in 1934. And the Federal Housing Administration is going to utilize the redlining system when it comes to giving out government loans to buy houses. And the insurance companies are going to, the insurance industry and the real estate industry are going to use the redlining process, okay, to lock African Americans out of certain neighborhoods. And the redlining process was created by a federal government entity in 1933 called the Homeowners Loan Corporation. Sorry, 1933, the Homeowners Loan Corporation, okay, which comes from the New Deal and President Roosevelt. The Homeowners Loan Corporation creates this redlining process where, and they assign grades to certain areas based upon risk, things like this. And the areas in the red are higher risks, and African Americans are going to be moved into those areas. And then when we try to get loans to buy property in these areas, we're going to be denied these loans oftentimes because they said these are high risk areas. And then in 1949, when you have the Federal Housing Act, which is passed by Congress, the Federal Housing Act allows white people to put 3% down on low interest loans to get to buy houses that are being built in the newly formed suburbs. Okay. And then when we try to get these loans, we're locked out from buying these homes in the newly formed suburbs for the most part. And then when we try to use these loans to buy houses in the inner cities, we're denied those loans also. And they're using taxpayer dollars to finance these loans and allowing white people to do this and move out to the suburbs and leave African Americans in the inner city. At the same time, you're having the deindustrialization of the inner city taking place, and these plants are being moved out of the inner city, placed in the suburbs, okay, because white people are moving out to the suburbs. All right. So a lot of this segregation that you see was created by the federal government. When you actually study, like if you read How White Folks Got So Rich, The Untold Story of American White Supremacy, if you read the book, How White Folks Got So Rich, The Untold Story of American White Supremacy. Okay. If you read that book, it deals with all the policies, federal policies, things like this that the federal government has implemented that help create the segregation, that help to maldistribute wealth into the hands of Europeans. All right. Okay. Because see, the two main ways to understand politics. Number one, politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. The legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. Number two, politics is the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Okay. All right, so I just posted this link here to this article from theroot.com, and this deals with the movie The Birth of a Nation. It deals with when African Americans fought against the movie The Birth of a Nation and protested against it. Okay. All right. Here's the information for the online course that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Okay, how's everybody doing tonight? Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network. We're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, writer. And we're dealing with the 100th anniversary of the silent protest march that took place in 1917, July 28th, 1917. You had about 10,000 African Americans protesting against racism, lynchings, etc. Okay. Now, what's interesting is you had 10,000 that protested then, and there were even more who supported them across the country, you know, who felt the sentiment, supported them across the country, right? Now, how many African Americans are going to support Colin Kaepernick, who stood up for us and participate in the economic boycott against the NFL? See, that's going to be interesting because back in 1917, we had a better sense of understanding when we were attacked. Okay. If you go to our website, africanhistorynetwork.com, africanhistorynetwork.com, we have a recommended reading list of books there, africanhistorynetwork.com. Recommended reading list of books there, almost 60 books. How White Folks Got So Rich, The Untold Story of American White Supremacy is on that, is on the reading list. And then also you can read all of my articles that I write there at our website, africanhistorynetwork.com as well. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Okay. So we have Daniel, Barina. I love football, but I won't be watching this season. And look at the protest. I mean, look at the, not the protest, look at the video that I did a couple of days ago dealing with the, you have two civil rights activists out of California, Najee Ali and Bishop K.W. Tulas, who are organizing an economic boycott of the NFL, and they're starting theirs in the California area, Los Angeles. They're boycotting against the Los Angeles NFL teams. Okay. But this is something that can spread across the country. All right. I'll be doing a broadcast in the next couple of days explaining the anatomy of a successful NFL boycott, because a lot of people don't understand how to actually execute this. Okay. But you can check out the video that I did a couple of days ago. It's here on Facebook, the African History Network, and then also on YouTube as well. Our YouTube channel is Michael Imhotep, Imhotep, Michael Imhotep on YouTube. Okay. All right. Now, so I teach an online course. So how you all like this type of information? Number one, how's everybody doing? How you all like this type of information? Mesky said, I stand with Colin Kaepernick. Oya said, you're good, my brother. We're also boycotting in Toledo. Darius said, great. Okay. Love it. All right. So you all learn anything tonight? How you like this type of information? When am I coming to Houston? Okay. If somebody brings me out to Houston, you can contact me through my website, africanhistorynetwork.com. If you want to book me to do a presentation for your group or organization, we can make that happen. Yeah, if you want me to, I do lectures. I have 35 of my presentations on DVD. If you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization, you can go to my website, africanhistorynetwork.com, africanhistorynetwork.com, and you can contact me through there. We can set something up. Okay. Because I'll travel. We'll work out the details, and we'll make it happen. And I'll promote the lecture on my networks here. Promote it here on Facebook and on my radio shows. All right. Okay. So Dwayne, Steven. All right. Are there any ladies on tonight? Just curious. Okay. Any ladies watching? All right. Boycotting straight out of Florida. Mimi. Okay. She said, I'm with you, Oya Asur. Okay. So on Friday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I teach an online course called Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Okay. This is a 12-hour, 6-week online course that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history. We deal with history leading up to the transatlantic slave trade also, because it doesn't take place in a vacuum. We deal with the African presence in this country going back at least 51,700 years ago as well. So we deal with a lot of information. We deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. We talk about Freemasonry. We talk about what the Moors introduced into Europe, the teachings coming out of ancient Kemet, out of ancient Egypt. We deal with a lot of information. It's a 12-hour, 6-week online course. All the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch it over and over again. It's only $40. and we have about 20 hours of bonus content also. I just started a new set. We have a new section starting up this Friday, August 11th, 2017, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. So session number 1 starts this Friday. Okay. As soon as you register for that, you can tune in from around the world. As soon as you register for the course, you can watch the session I did last Friday, because we have a section of the course that's wrapping up. So you can watch the session I did last Friday. And we have about 20 hours of bonus content, and you'll be right on track to start the class this coming Friday. Okay. If you miss any of the class, it's all recorded. You can go back and watch it over and over again. Okay. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. All right. And we deal with archaeological discoveries that have been made recently also. We deal with a lot of information in the course. Okay. Because when these new archaeological discoveries take place, and I pinned the information here so it stops moving. So it says new class starts on Friday, August 11th, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Right here on the thread. Also, if you go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, you can register there. And we have a bundle pack where it's a bundle pack of 4 of my courses, the online courses I teach, for $80, regularly $120 also. Okay. TK said, love to hear anything dealing with our history. Anita said, we got to ask why is Google showcasing black protests while Sessions is outlawing protests? How is Sessions outlawing protests? Carol said, I'm here listening. Now, I warned people about Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III. I warned people about Donald Trump for months before the election. People didn't want to listen. I warned people for months about Donald Trump before the election, and everything I said is coming true. It's even worse than I thought. Some things are worse than I thought. But I warned people about Donald Trump for months. And also across a lot of cities across the country, tomorrow, August 8th, Tuesday, August 8th is election day. So be sure to educate yourself on what's going on. Go out and vote. Tuesday, August 8th. I know in Detroit, we're voting. We have the primaries for mayor and city council, things like that. All right. So, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school, Friday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. This coming Saturday, I'm also going to do a online presentation, online lecture this Saturday at our online school. This is going to be called African American Resistance in the Era of Donald Trump, Voter Suppression, Reparations, and How Elections Have Consequences. Voter suppression, reparations, and how elections have consequences. Because I have a presentation I've done on this. I've done this presentation twice, but I haven't done the full presentation. So this Saturday, I'm going to do the full, about an hour and 45-minute presentation, something like that. So look out for that. You can register for our online course that I do on Fridays, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understand the transatlantic slave trade. And then the one on Donald Trump, we'll get that up tomorrow or Wednesday, something like that. Okay. All right. So how's everybody here? Okay. Anita, it's in the news. He's trying to crack down on protests. Haven't seen that. I'm familiar with the NAACP advisory. We're about to talk about that. Sessions cracking down on protests I haven't seen. Now, I do know you have about 18 or 19 states that have Republican legislatures, Republican dominated legislatures, and they are trying to pass laws at the state level to crack down on protests. And I know about that because I talked about that about 3 months ago. Okay. But Jeff Sessions cracking down on protests, I haven't heard about that. Now, cracking down on leaks coming out of the intelligence community and the White House. Yeah, I know about that with Jeff Sessions. Okay, so the NAACP out of Missouri, has issued a travel advisory warning. Okay. Post some information about that. Jeff Sessions cannot outlaw protests. Jeff Sessions, let me just make this clear. Jeff Sessions, who's Attorney General, cannot outlaw protests because that's protected by the First Amendment, which is in the Constitution. So Jeff Sessions cannot outlaw protests. They can't. Sessions does not have legislative power. So Sessions cannot outlaw protests. Okay. All right. So the state of the NAACP and the state of Missouri has issued a travel advisory warning for the state of Missouri. Thinkprogress.org had an article about this, but theroot.com has a really, really good article about this. We talked about this this past Thursday a little bit on Wake Up with Steve Hood. Okay. And some of you all saw on my radio show last night, 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, the Voice of Detroit. We had Jamon Jordan on. We talked about the movie Detroit. Has anybody seen the movie Detroit that just came out Friday, August 4th? And it's about the killing at the Algiers Motel in Detroit. This was during the 1967 Detroit Rebellion. Has anybody seen that movie? Okay, we talked about the movie last night. Had Jamon Jordan on, who's a historian and he's an expert on Detroit history. We dealt with that last. Some of you all saw that last night. It's also on our YouTube channel as well. Michael Imhotep on YouTube. Okay, but this is the first travel advisory that the NAACP has issued. Okay. And the state of Missouri has earned the dubious distinction of being the first ever state to have a travel advisory against it issued by the NAACP, which is a 100-year plus organization. It's like 106 years old. And this is due to a recent string of both directly and indirectly state sanctioned racist and discriminatory incidents. Okay. So the Kansas City Star, which is a newspaper in the area, reports that the NAACP travel advisory was circulated in June of 2017 by the Missouri NAACP and picked up by the national organization last month. Okay. Which would be it'd been June. It would have been July. It would have been July. Okay. Now, the state NAACP leaders, state of Missouri, state NAACP leaders told the Kansas City Star that the decision to issue the travel advisory warning was made after the recent legislation passed in the state of Missouri, which makes it harder to win discrimination lawsuits. The legislation was passed. This is why state elections are so important. A lot of times people just focus on the president. No, state elections are so important because a lot of if you look back during President Obama's 8 years in office, a lot of things people were complaining about President Obama, and Obama didn't do this, Obama didn't do that. A lot of those were state laws that were kicking your behind. A lot of those laws came from the state legislature. And a lot of times people don't vote for state senators and state House of Representatives and don't vote for governor. And they expect the president just to work all this stuff out and don't understand the concept of states' rights. Don't understand the concept of states' rights. Okay. So the state legislature in Missouri recently passed legislation that makes it harder to win discrimination lawsuits. The long time and continued racial disparities. So you have that reason. Then also the long time and continued racial disparities in traffic enforcement. Okay, writing tickets, targeting African Americans, racially profiling African Americans, writing exorbitant tickets, things like this. We saw in Ferguson, Missouri, and we know that August 9th is the 3-year anniversary of the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. Yesterday on MSNBC, they had a lot of coverage of that. We know that in Ferguson, Missouri, the Department of Justice report found that the municipality there in Ferguson was balancing the books, balancing their budget off of writing tickets on African Americans. So you have the long time and continued racial disparities in traffic enforcement, and you also have a number of incidents that exemplify harm coming to both minority and residents, to both minority residents and minority visitors to the state of Missouri as well. So you have a number of reasons that the NAACP is issuing this this travel advisory. Okay, there's a number of reasons that's causing them to do this. All right, now one of the incidents cited by the NAACP that caused them to give this travel advisory, to issue this travel advisory warning, was the death of a 28-year-old named Torrey Sanders from Tennessee. Okay, and Torrey Sanders made a wrong turn while traveling through the state of Missouri, and this ended up with him dying in a rural jail 150 miles south of St. Louis. He died in a rural jail 150 miles south of St. Louis. Okay. Now, Rod Chappell is the president of the Missouri NAACP, and he told he was interviewed by the Kansas City Star. Okay. And he asked the Kansas City Star in the interview, he said, "How do you come to Missouri, run out of gas, and find yourself dead in a jail cell when you haven't broken any laws?" He said, "You have violations of civil rights that are happening to people. They're being pulled over because of their skin color. They're being beaten up or killed." He said, "We are hearing complaints at a rate we haven't heard before." This is what was so dangerous about Donald Trump joking about police brutality, quote unquote, joking about police brutality. I don't think he was joking. I think it was serious. Okay. The White House is saying, oh, he was joking about police brutality. All right. And notice that Trump is tweeting while he's on a 17-day vacation, right? He's tweeting. He hasn't said anything about the bombing of a mosque in Minnesota. Okay. He hasn't said anything about that. All right. Notice that. So, and you have people saying, wait a second, he needs to say something about this bombing of this mosque, because the governor is saying this is a terrorist act. Okay. The governor is saying this is a terrorist act. All right. I think it was in Minnesota. Okay. So Rod Chappell with the NAACP in Missouri goes on to say, he was interviewed by the Kansas City Star. He says, "We're hearing complaints at a rate we haven't heard before." So when you have a president, right, who doesn't condemn these racial attacks, and then he makes statements in front of law enforcement, basically condoning police brutality, he's dog whistling to these people, okay, and basically saying this type of behavior is okay. But he ran on the platform of law and order. He ran on the platform of law and order, which basically means protect white people and lock up African Americans. This is what law and order means. Protect white people and lock up African Americans. Okay. All right. So according to the Kansas City Star, national delegates from the NAACP voted to adopt this advisory, and the national board will ratify this adoption of the advisory in October 2017. But I've seen news stories on this. I think this morning on News One Now, Roland Martin, I think they talked about it. Yesterday on MSNBC, Reverend Al Sharpton talked about this on Politics Nation. They were talking about this yesterday throughout the day on MSNBC. Okay. So it's going to be interesting to see if Donald Trump talks about this. He can tweet. He's tweeting about all this other stuff. Fake news, fake polls, things like this. Right. It's going to be interesting to see if he talks about this. I mean, because this is the same guy. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is the same guy that asked African Americans, what the hell do you have to lose? This is the same guy who talked about how great he was going to make things for African Americans. This is that same guy who's not speaking out on any of these issues. So the advisory is, so Rod Chappell, president of the Missouri NAACP, he said the advisory is for people to be aware and warn their families and friends and co-workers of what could happen in Missouri, He said people need to be ready, whether it's bringing bail money with them or letting relatives know they are traveling through the state. This is in 2017 in Trump America. Interesting. Trump has been silent about this. Wonder why. Make America great again. Yeah, okay. Really? What period of time are you talking about that America was so great you want to go back to? What period of time are you talking about America was so great that you want to go back to? Okay, so Kenny on Facebook said Obama did nothing for the Black community in 8 years. Really? Kenny, have you ever read the document Progress of the African American Community in the Obama administration? Did you ever read that? Progress of the African American Community in the Obama administration from whitehouse.gov, which lists numerous policies that positively impacted the African American community. Did you ever read that? If you didn't read it, just say you didn't read it. Don't make things up. Make it easy on yourself. And, you know, in the presentation that I do, African American resistance in the era of Donald Trump, you know, one of the things I talk about is how Trump is systematically reversing policies that President Obama put in place. Many of them actually beneficial to African Americans that many of us didn't even know existed. Wonder why. See, when people, I don't know if Kenny's a troll or not, but you know, I'll see. I deal with facts and evidence. So what I find interesting, I'm always interested to find out when people make comments like that. Where do you get your news from on a daily basis that deals with African Americans? Where do you get your news from on a daily basis that deals with African Americans? Let's see here. Okay, so we posted that link. Okay, Rodney said he is a clown. All right, so how's everybody doing this evening? We talked about, hey, I'm Michael Imhotep. For those just tuning in, I know people tune in different times. I'm Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show, talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. You see me in documentaries like the Black Friday documentaries. You see me in Elementary Genocide Part 3 that's coming out in a couple of weeks from director Raheem Shabazz. You see some of my broadcasts here on Facebook. So we talked about the 100th anniversary of the silent protests in New York. It took place July 28th, 1917. You had 10,000 African Americans protesting against lynchings, protesting against violence against African Americans, etc. Okay, and then we also talked about the travel advisory warning that the NAACP has issued also, okay, in Missouri. Travel advisory warning NAACP has issued in Missouri. Okay, we posted the link there for the online course that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Do you need me to post a link again? Okay. We do that class on Friday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a 12-hour, 6-week online course that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of our history as well. Okay. Okay, so who wants to register for the course? I'll post the link again for you if you need me to. And all the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch it over and over again if you missed any of it. We have about 20 hours of bonus content there as well. Okay. So I'm going to just go over with you quickly here some of the information we deal with in the course. All right. And this course came out of a presentation I did. It's a lecture I did back in 2014 called Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, What They Didn't Teach You in School. This is about 7 years of research. This lecture that I did. Okay. So anytime that I do a presentation, I know I'm going to say some things people never heard before, may say some things people don't like, may say some things people disagree with. I deal with facts and evidence. I don't deal with opinions. Okay. I am interested how many people are posting about Usher having herpes allegedly and giving these other women herpes. And then you have Quantisa Sharpton, who comes out and at a press conference that she does with her attorney, Lisa Bloom. We posted an article from BET today because some people are saying she said that Usher gave her herpes. No, that's not what she said. Watch the video. In the video, she said she doesn't have herpes. She said she is trying to find out her rights because she said that Usher did not tell her he had an STD, but she does not claim that Usher gave her herpes. Okay. I saw another article from, I think it was BET, saying that she said she needed money. So interesting there, but she does not have herpes, and she admitted she does not have herpes. And also, if you read the article from heavy.com, because attorney Lisa Bloom said the attorney says she does not know for certain that Usher has herpes either. If you read the article from heavy.com, okay. Very, very interesting, because I was doing some research on this. I was talking to my frat brother, Warren Ballantyne, about this, another talk show host, talking to Warren about this earlier today. And I was doing some research on it because I watched, part of the press conference. And she says in the press conference, she said in the press conference, she does not have herpes. She said her daughter was born last year and she was tested and does not have herpes. Okay. So it's interesting. I see some of these articles saying that she's saying that Usher gave her herpes. No, that's not what she's saying. All right. So what did Kenny say? This is teaching not for your opinions, Kenny. What did Kenny say? Is Kenny a troll or what? All right. So I know I'm going to say some things sometimes that are outside the circumference of some people's awareness. Just because you never heard them before, or don't like it, or disagree with it, does not mean it's not true. It just means you have to do some research to understand what I'm talking about. Okay. I deal with facts and evidence. I don't deal with a lot of opinions. If it's my opinion, I'll let you know. But I deal with facts and evidence. I don't deal with opinions. All right. Okay. So some of the things we deal with in the course, we deal with what was the transatlantic slave trade. We deal with things chronologically as much as possible. We deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. We deal with what were some of the events that led up to the transatlantic slave trade happening? What were some of the events that led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place? Which is very, very important to understand. Okay. We can't start the study of the transatlantic slave trade in 1619, August 20th. We can't start in the 1500s. Okay. We can't start in 1440 when the Portuguese get involved in the transatlantic slave trade. All right. We have to understand that it's it is the culmination of a sequence of historical events. All right. Christopher Columbus is very crucial to understanding the transatlantic slave trade. Why? Because it's Columbus and his 4 voyages that are going to open up the so-called New World to other European powers, and they're going to come in and exploit these islands, these territories, Haiti, Jamaica, Cuba, Puerto Rico, things like this. Okay, if you look at where Columbus goes on his 4 voyages, it's very important. Okay, for a few reasons. Number one, contrary to popular belief, Columbus never comes to the land that we call the United States of America. Okay, Columbus never comes to the land that we call the United States of America. If you look at where Columbus goes on his 4 voyages, right? He set sail August 3rd, 1492 on the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. He goes into the Bahamas, which he calls San Salvador. He goes into Cuba, Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, or what later is called Haiti. Okay, he goes into these areas. His second voyage, September 1493, he goes into the West Indies. He goes into Puerto Rico and Jamaica. All right. His third voyage, May of 1498, he goes into Trinidad and Venezuelan mainland. He goes into South America also, South America as well. And his fourth voyage, May of 1504, he goes into Panama and Honduras, okay, in Central America. He never comes to the land that we call the United States of America. He never comes to the land that we call the United States of America. All right. So we need to stop lying to our children, telling them that Columbus discovered America. Okay. Also, what a lot of people don't know is that at least 70% of the people Columbus encountered on his 4 voyages were African people. At least because African people were already in these lands. And this is why we approach the history chronologically as opposed to episodically. African people did not first start going into these territories in 1501 and 1502 when Spain is bringing Africans in from Africa into these territories. Okay, no, you're going to have a lot of them already there. If you read the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence, and this is one of the books we use in the course. You don't have to buy any of these books to follow along in the course, but we use them for reference and citations, things like this, right? First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence by Dr. David Imhotep. I've interviewed him a number of times, about 10 times. He's a friend of mine. This is his book here, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. It came out in 2011. His book deals with the African presence in this country going back at least 51,700 years. The African presence in this country going back at least 51,700 years. So on page 14 of his book, he deals with a discovery made in 2004 by Dr. Albert Goodyear. Dr. Albert Goodyear is an archaeologist at the University of South Carolina. Okay. And like I said, in the course, we deal with a number of archaeological discoveries that have been made in the last few years, including some made in the last few months that are totally turning the archaeological world upside down. Okay. Totally turning the archaeological world upside down. Okay. But this one right here, this deals with an African presence in South Carolina going back at least 51,700 years ago. Okay. At least 51,700 years ago. And this is what they found. Allendale County, South Carolina. They found artifacts, architecture, campsites, carvings, Egyptian writings, footprints in lava, genetic M174D haploid groups, dealing with DNA and genetics, linguistics, painting, skulls, skeletons, structures, and tools. Okay. They found 13 different disciplines thoroughly documenting an African presence in this country we call the United States of America at least 51,700 years ago. This is before Native Americans came into existence, because African people were here before Native Americans came into existence. Most people don't know this. Most African Americans don't know this. So in the course, we deal with dispelling a whole lot of myths, and we deal with history chronologically, so you can see how a sequence of historical events lead up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Okay. So this is very important. Now here is Dr. Albert Goodyear. This is an article from ScienceDaily.com. ScienceDaily.com. This is from 2004. This is 13 years ago. Most people don't even know this information exists. And this deals with the African presence in North America. Okay. And a synopsis of the article says, okay, Tisdale Renee, this is a fan page, not a group. So anybody can like the fan page. This is a fan page, not a group. Anybody can like a fan page. If people are abusive, we'll remove them if we catch them. Okay. If you don't like it, you don't have to be here. This is a fan page, not a group. A Facebook group, you have to be approved to join. A fan page, anybody can join a fan page. All right. Just so you understand the difference between a group and a fan page. Okay. So radiocarbon tests of carbonized plant remains, where artifacts were unearthed last May along the Savannah River in Allendale County by University of South Carolina archaeologist Dr. Albert Goodyear, indicate that the settlements containing these artifacts are at least 50,000 years old, meaning that humans inhabited North America long before the last ice age, which would be the Worm Ice Age, WURM, long before the last ice age. Okay. So this discovery flipped the archaeological world upside down. And you have mainstream archaeologists that don't want to really acknowledge this discovery. The reason why is because, first of all, they don't want to deal with an African presence in this country predating Native Americans, because it'll totally flip everything upside down, number one. Number two, the oldest basically civilization that archaeology deals with, the oldest really civilization they talk about, is the Clovis culture discovery in New Mexico, which dates back about 13,000 years ago. Well, this discovery here totally blow that out the water. All right. And because archaeology and anthropology are inherently racist, controlled by Europeans, when you have evidence that goes against the grain, especially against the grain of white supremacy, there's an effort to suppress it. Okay. And this is what we're seeing here with this discovery. But Dr. David Imhotep, in his book, he has a ton of information. Okay. So we deal with a number of different archaeological discoveries in the class. Okay. We deal with things like the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. Okay, very, very important, because the Moors are going to save Europe, bring Europe out of the Dark Ages, reintroduce the concept of longitude and latitude, introduce science, introduced algebra, introduced rice, cotton, alcohol, sugar. Sugar is huge. They're going to introduce sugar, introduce spherical globes, almanacs, introduce something called alchemy, which today we call chemistry. They introduced the periodic tables. The first university in Europe, the University of Salamanca in Spain, 1285 AD, approximately. African Moors and Arabs are going to build that. Okay, time to get rid of Kenny's stupid ass. Block Kenny. Bye-bye. All right, so we do what role did Christopher Columbus play? Columbus is tied to the Moors. We know Columbus has Moors navigating his ships, but Columbus is also going to use nautical instruments. He's also going to use nautical instruments that are going to be, he's going to use nautical instruments that are based upon technology that the African Moors introduced into Europe as well. Okay. So the Moors are critical to understanding the transatlantic slave trade. And the Moors are taking teachings coming out of ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, ancient Africa into Europe. And a lot of these teachers are going to form the foundation of European secret societies. First, the Knights Templar, founded in 1118 AD during the Second Crusades, 12th century AD during the Second Crusades. Later, the Freemasons and Rosicrucians, things like this. And we know 50 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were Freemasons also. We know 50 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were Freemasons as well. Okay. All right. So we deal with, did Africans sell themselves into slavery? We deal with that complicated piece of history also. We deal with African people in America before the slave trade, because yes, we were here before Europeans got here. We were here before Native Americans got here. You're going to have Asians who come to this land around 3000 BC. The Africans and Asians are going to intermix, and their offspring are who we're going to call Native Americans. Okay. When you look at old photographs of black and white photographs of Native Americans, these are usually dark-skinned people. Okay. Usually dark-skinned people. So we deal with the fake Willie Lynch speech of 1712, because Willie Lynch never historically existed. Willie Lynch never historically existed. The best thing we can do with the Willie Lynch letter is throw it in the garbage can. We talk some about Freemasonry as well, because Freemasonry is tied to the Moors, which is tied to ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt. We deal with religion some also, because you have to understand the impact that Christianity had upon Europeans and how it was used as a justification to enslave African people, to dehumanize them. Okay. And we have to understand how words are put on a people to dehumanize them and to put them in a particular category to then justify their mistreatment. So referring to Africans as savages, calling it the dark continent, calling them heathens and pagans, saying that because they're non-Christian, it's okay to enslave them. See, you have to change the way people think about someone by putting negative labels on them, creating negative images of them that then dehumanize them, to then justify the dehumanizing mistreatment of them. So people won't come to their rescue. People won't speak out on their behalf. You know, Dr. Joy DeGruy refers to it as cognitive dissonance. She talks about this in Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, which is one of the books we use in the course, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. So once again, you don't have to buy any of these books to follow along in the course, things like this, but we use it. You know, there are a couple of pages I cite here in a book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGruy. Okay. So we talk about, we have to talk about Christianity, we talk about religion, and because you're going to have Christians involved in the transatlantic slave trade, but also you have to deal with Asar, Aset, and Heru. Asar, Aset, and Heru, known as the First Holy Trinity, coming out of ancient Kemet. The story of the Annunciation and the Adoration and the Virgin Birth, things like this is a very, very ancient story. Okay, so we deal with the Moors, and the Moors losing control of their last stronghold in Spain, January 2nd, 1492, which was Grenada. This comes right out of the story of Asar, Aset, and Heru. You have the Tekken, right? So the Tekken, the Greeks call it an obelisk. Okay, this is a ancient African symbol that is a symbol of resurrection and transformation, going back to the story of Asar, Aset, and Heru, who the Greeks called Osiris, Isis, and Horus. And Asar's body is cut up into 14 pieces and spread throughout ancient Kemet. And Aset, his wife, recovers 13 of the pieces, but the 14th piece is lost, which is the phallus, the penis. So she's going to erect this monument, which is called a Tekken, and the Greeks call it an obelisk. And this is what she erects this monument, which is a representation of the penis of Asar. And you're going to have about 1,200 Tekkenu all throughout ancient Kemet. And they're going to be taken. Some of those are going to be taken and relocated throughout the world: Istanbul, Turkey, Paris, France, Vatican City, things like this, New York City. But the Washington Monument, which is 555 feet tall, the Washington Monument is a Tekken. Okay? Is a Tekken. And the layout of Washington, D.C. is based upon ancient African principles coming out of ancient Kemet. Tony Browder talks about this. Tony Browder talks about this in his book, Egypt on the Potomac. And he gives, if you're in the DC DMV area, you know, he gives tours of Washington, D.C. and shows you the ancient African presence all throughout Washington, D.C. But Tony Browder has the book, Egypt on the Potomac. Egypt on the Potomac. Okay. Excellent book. All right. We use that some in the course. Excellent book. I've interviewed Tony 6 times. You can listen to some of the interviews I've done with him. But the word Mason, as in Freemason, is derived from the Latin words mass and sun, mass and sun. And Mason means child of light and expresses the desire to pursue light, which is a metaphor for the sun, which symbolizes knowledge. So it's tradition going back thousands of years to associate the light with knowledge, and darkness is going to be associated with ignorance. So when you have the African Moors taking the light of ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, into Europe, Europe was the dark continent because Europe was going through the dark ages. Europe was the continent of ignorance. When the Moors go into the Iberian Peninsula, today known as Spain and Portugal, in 711 AD, about 85–90% of Europeans were illiterate. They can neither read nor write. Okay. Oreo said, I've been hearing about the Willie Lynch. This Willie Lynch is fake. Could you please elaborate? Willie Lynch never historically existed. The Willie Lynch letter of 1712 was written in 1970 by Dr. Kwabena Ashanti. Dr. Kwabena Ashanti. He wrote it to show African Americans how they were acting like slaves has done more harm than good, because many of us did not go study real history. We read the speech, we read the letter and thought it was real history, and it's not. The words in that letter that didn't even exist in the early 18th century, like self-refueling. That's a word that comes from the transportation industry in the 20th century. When you understand sentence structure and words that exist in the early 18th century, they didn't even talk that way back at that time. That speech was written in 1970. Willie Lynch, when you study world history, you don't read about a Willie Lynch anywhere in the 18th century, especially being a slave owner, giving a speech on the banks of the James River to slaveholders. No, that's nonsense. And Dr. Kwabena Ashanti has come out and admitted he wrote the Willie Lynch speech. Okay, so the term child of light or sons and daughters of light was first used to identify students who had completed 42 years of study in the temples of ancient Kemet. Many Masonic temples were modeled after the temples of Kemet, places where light and knowledge was imparted in a series of steps or degrees. So the whole concept of you going to college and getting your credentials in a set of degrees, bachelor's degree, master's degree, PhD degree, etc. This comes out of ancient Kemet, where you get your credentials in steps or degrees. This is where this comes from. The concept of liberal arts colleges, that goes back to the liberal arts taught in the mystery schools, the trivium and the quadrivium, the 3 and the 4, the trivium, the 7 liberal arts, the trivium and the quadrivium, things like rhetoric and logic, things like this. George G.M. James deals with this in Stolen Legacy. If you read Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James, he deals with this in the book. Okay. All right. And if you read Egypt on the Potomac, pages 18 and 32, Browder breaks this stuff down in Egypt on the Potomac. A lot of people don't know 50 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were Freemasons. So you have Freemasonry principles and symbols incorporated into the layout of Washington, D.C., but also on the dollar bill as well. That's why a pyramid is on the back of the dollar bill. Okay. And then when we look at Offset, we see a copy of Offset in Isis from DC Comics, who gets her powers from ancient Egypt, right? The secrets of Isis TV show. There's a copy of an African woman, Offset, who the Greeks call Isis, who on December 25th gave birth through a virgin birth to her son Heru. And the concept of the virgin birth, the Immaculate Conception, the adoration, the Annunciation, all that is this a very ancient story that goes back to at least 3300 BC in ancient Nubia, or Ta-Nehesi, which is the mother of ancient Egypt or ancient Kemet. So from Offset, who the Greeks call Isis, Offset means she of throne. From Offset, you get the Black Madonna and child worship all throughout Europe by Europeans for hundreds of years. And then from that, you get the decolorized version of Mary and Joseph. You get the decolorized version with the rise of white supremacy in the late 15th, early 16th centuries. With the rise of white supremacy, as Europeans start to circumnavigate the globe, conquer people's lands, with the rise of white supremacy, you have a rise in the European phenotype also, in European culture. Okay. But for hundreds of years before that, you're going to have, and even amongst the Greeks and the Romans, they're going to practically worship African people. Okay. And even with the Moors, you had a lot of Europeans who admired the Moors, their knowledge of science and mathematics and things like that. Europeans, they were ignorant as hell. I mean, you read Golden Age of the Moor, edited by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. I mean, they break this stuff down. So we deal with why Christmas is celebrated on December 25th, things like this. We deal with the origins of the word America, origins of the word Africa as well. Because a lot of people don't know, Noah Webster Dictionary, 1828 Noah Webster Dictionary, deals with how the word American originally pertained to the Aboriginal or copper-colored races. Aboriginal or copper-colored races found in the Americas by Europeans, which means that it did not originally apply to Europeans, because Europeans were not already here. the term America, the term American originally applied to the Aboriginal or copper color races found in the Americas by Europeans. So who did they find when they got there? They found African people who had been there for tens of thousands of years, and they found Native Americans. So the term American originally did not apply to Europeans, but it now applies to the descendants of Europeans born in America. A lot of them don't even realize that this goes back to the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. So Stephen Biko, one of our great South African freedom fighters, Stephen Biko teaches us that the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. The most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Okay. These are some of the things that we deal with in our online course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. How do y'all like this type of information? How's everybody doing tonight? Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. How do y'all like this type of information? This is just a brief overview, brief preview of some of the type of information we deal with in the online course that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Just posted a link there. Again, you can register for the online course. So this is a 12-hour, 6-week online course that I teach. We have a new section of it starting up Friday, August 11th, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's session number 1. All the sessions are recorded. If you miss anything, you can go back and watch it over and over again. The course is only $40, okay? So it'll blow you away. We also have about 20 hours of bonus content there as well, okay? And you're going to learn a lot in the class. Guaranteed you're going to learn a lot in the class. And we try to deal with things chronologically as much as possible as well, so you can see how a sequence of historical events lead up to other events taking place also. That's very, very important, understanding the chronology of history. This is why you can't deal with the transatlantic slave trade episodically. You can't deal with it episodically, okay? You can't deal with it as an episode of history. It doesn't fall out of the sky. It doesn't grow up out of the ground. It is the result of a sequence of historical events. Now, these are two national flags. You have the national flag of the French island of Corsica in the Mediterranean, and the national flag of Sardinia, okay, the Italian island of Sardinia. On their national flags, they have African Moors heads on their national flags. The reason why is because the Moors were in those areas, and it took a monumental effort to defeat them. Okay. And you see the Moors, they have bandanas around their heads, right? Originally, those bandanas were blindfolds to signify that they had been captured, conquered, and captured. But because of political correctness and tourism, things like this, they're going to turn the blindfolds into bandanas. But these were African people. These African Moors they go all throughout Europe. They go into European islands, like they go into islands in the Mediterranean, like Corsica. They go into Sicily. They go into Crete. They go all throughout. They go all throughout Europe. They go all throughout these islands. All right. So we deal with who the Moors were, things like this. We deal with the life insurance companies. You had over 40 life insurance companies in this country that sold insurance policies on Africans on the slave plantations, not just on slave ships. Africans on slave plantations also. They would slave masters who had enslaved Africans who worked in very dangerous capacities. They may have worked on steamships or worked in coal mines or sawmills, things like this. They would take out insurance policies on them. So when that slave died untimely, they would recoup 3/4 of the investment they had in that slave, so they go buy another. There were at least 262 skills, trades, and crafts that African people had in this country from 1619 to 1865. You can listen to the interview that I did with Professor Manu and Pim, Death to the Fake Willie Lynch Speech. It's on YouTube also. We did this November 21st, 2013. Death to the Fake Willie Lynch Speech. Okay. Interview Professor Manu and Pim, MANUAMPIM, Manu and Pim. And at his website, manuandpim.com, he has 3 essays you can read called Death to the Willie Lynch Speech. He has 3 essays there where he breaks down, because he's a historian, okay? And he breaks down the Willie Lynch speech and shows you how it's a fraud, okay? And he was the one who got Dr. Kwabena Ashanti to actually admit that he was the one that wrote the Willie Lynch speech and why things like this, okay? But there were at least 262 skills, trades, and crafts that African people had in this country from 1619 to 1865. And the book, The Other Slaves by James Newton and Ronald Lewis. The book, The Other Slaves, that came out in 1978, deals with this. Okay. And we talk about this in the course. There are at least 262 skills, trades, and crafts that slave owners are going to profit off of. And these skills, trades, and crafts are going to be used to build this country. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's just some of the information that we deal with in our online course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. This is a 12-hour, 6-week online course that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history, thousands of years of African history. You know, Malcolm X, and you see the picture of Malcolm behind me. Malcolm's one of my heroes. Malcolm taught us education is our passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. Education is our passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. Okay. All right. So how do you all like this type of information? Who wants to register for the online course? Because this is some type of information we deal with and a lot more. This is just scratching the surface. Helen said, must say good night. Enjoyed the lesson. Okay, Helen. Erica, maybe this is why I couldn't follow along throughout K through 12. I was somebody that did not like history in class, in school, because they didn't teach like African history, things like this. I really did not like history in class. When I got to college is when I started liking it more, when I started taking African history courses. Okay, so all right. Okay, so we posted a link again there, guys. You can register for the online course. As soon as you register, you can watch the session we did last Friday. And there's about 20 hours of bonus content. And then also you can join us for session number 1 this Friday, August 11th, 2017, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, you can go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have you can register there at our website. You can also register for the bundle, the course bundle pack. We have there also. You can register for 4 of my online courses. It's $80, regularly $120. Course bundle pack. Our website is AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All of my DVD lectures are there. We have documentaries like the Black Friday documentaries. Also, I'm in the Black Friday documentaries. We have Resurrecting Black Wall Street, The Blueprint, all of that stuff there. The Black Friday documentaries, Hidden Colors, documentaries, Elementary Genocide 1 and 2. All that stuff's at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Elementary Genocide 1 and 2 deal with the school to prison pipeline. Okay, school to prison pipeline and educating African American children. So we have all of that at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay. And if you want to bring me in and do a presentation for your group or organization, that's you can email me through the website. Okay. Let's see. Erica said, same here. I actually majored in African American and African studies in college. Okay. And see, when you have the like African studies programs, well, I don't know about yours, but I know when I took Africana studies courses at Wayne State, you know, they wanted to start in like the 1500s, and you can't deal. I mean, because I was studying Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark. You know, I'm studying Dr. Yosef Ben Yakin and studying ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt. They're not even dealing with that in the classes. Kevin, okay, about to sign up. Okay, good. Yeah, you all can go ahead and sign up. As soon as you register, you can start watching the course content right away. Oreo said, okay, message just stripped away. James, okay, James, how you doing? Yeah, see, that's what. So when I started taking Africana studies classes, in some areas I was already far advanced. I was more advanced than the professors, you know, because I'm reading Dr. Naeem Akbar, Dr. John Henry Clark. You know, I'm studying Dr. Wade Nobles, Dr. Leonard Jeffries. You know, I'm dealing with like real heavyweights in Africana studies, in African history. I'm studying. Okay, you went to a predominantly white institution. So did I. So the African presence in the United States, you know, they're not teaching that existed before Europeans even got here. They're not teaching that type of history. This is why the information coming from Dr. David Imhotep is so great. Okay. Yeah, this is why the information from Dr. David Imhotep is so great, because you have to deal with things chronologically. All right. Okay. So if you have any other questions, go ahead and ask it, because we only have a few more minutes left here. These broadcasts time out after 2 hours because I'm broadcasting through Crowdcast. Okay. And then on my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep on YouTube, IMHOTEP, watch the video that I did dealing with the boycott NFL initiative and Colin Kaepernick. Watch that. And then either Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm going to do a video and I'm going to lay out how to have a successful economic boycott against the NFL. Because I hear some people talking, they say, oh, you can't do it unless the players are involved, things like that. Not the plan I'm going to lay out. See, a lot of people don't. I've studied a number of successful economic boycotts throughout history. We just did I have to put it on YouTube. We did it last Thursday on Steve Hood's show. I have to put it on YouTube. It deals with the Baton Rouge, Louisiana bus boycott of 1953. I just did a presentation about that last Thursday on Wake Up with Steve Hood on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation here in Detroit. See, a lot of people are familiar with the Montgomery bus boycott of 1955 that lasted 381 days. But 2 years before that, Baton Rouge, Louisiana had an 8-day economic boycott of the bus system. It was in 1953. 1953, most people don't know about it, but it laid a template for economic boycotts, and it served as inspiration for the Montgomery bus boycott. It served as inspiration for the Montgomery bus boycott, and those in Montgomery were monitoring the boycott in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and one of the leaders of the boycott was Reverend T.J. Jemison. And in 1955, Dr. King is going to contact Reverend T.J. Jemison to get some advice on the Montgomery bus boycott. But they talk about how, Montgomery, they talked about how it served as a template for their economic boycott. A lot of people don't know about this. The Baton Rouge, Louisiana bus boycott of 1953. We talked about that last Thursday. The video is here on Facebook, our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, because I broadcast it on Facebook, so it's there, but I have to put it on YouTube. Okay. All right. So, okay, guys, we got to get out of here. You can register for the online course. I teach ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So Kemet is one of the original names for ancient Egypt. Ma'afa is a Kiswahili term which refers to the great disaster or our Holocaust, okay, referring to the transatlantic slave trade. Ma'afa, M-A-A-F-A. All right. Okay, so we got to get out of here. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Remember, right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. And remember, the history of the past teaches. Remember, history teaches you how to deal with the problems of the past in the present and the future. History teaches you how to deal with the problems of the past in the present and the future. All right. Talk to you next time. Peace.